It kind of blows my mind to consider the fact that we're up to nearly 600 episodes of this podcast, the 10% Happier podcast. That's a lot of conversations. I like to think of it as a great compendium of, and I know this is a bit of a grandiose term, but wisdom. The only downside of having this vast library of audio is that it can be hard to know where to start. So we're launching a new feature here, playlists. Just like you put together a playlist of your favorite songs. Back in the day, we used to call those mixtapes. Just like you do that with music, you can do it with podcasts. So if you're looking for episodes about anxiety, we've got a playlist of all of our anxiety episodes. Or if you're looking for how to sleep better, we've got a playlist for that. We've even put together a playlist of some of my personal favorite episodes. That was a hard list to make. Check out our playlists at 10%.com/playlist. That's 10%, all one word spelled out, .com/playlist, singular. Let us know what you think. We're always open to tweaking how we do things, and maybe there's a playlist we haven't thought of. Hit me up on Twitter or submit a comment through the website. From ABC, this is the 10% Happier podcast. I'm Dan Harris. Hey, we're coming to you from one of the best, fanciest, most prestigious, most expensive restaurants on planet Earth, Le Bernardin. This place has 4 stars in the New York Times, 3 stars from Michelin. You cannot get any more stars, people. And the man in charge of making sure this place maintains its standards and its reputation is Eric Ripert. Not only is Eric one of the planet's best chefs, not only is he a TV host and author, but he's also, as he described himself, a practicing Buddhist. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for being with us.
I've been here before a few times. I don't want to brag. I've been here a few times, mostly for lunch because I'm cheap. But the food is like crazily delicious. You are doing something right. That salmon thing you bring out at the beginning.
Oh yes,
I could subsist on
that alone.
That's a signature
canapé when you come. It's convivial and it's to welcome you and make you at ease. And it's delicious, yes.
Absolutely delicious.
I'm biased, but I love it.
So there are a million things I want to talk to you about. Oh, let me just say one thing, though. My only beef with you is one time I came here and you made me put a blazer on. I was dumb enough to come.
Yes, we ask.
This is a formal place.
We ask people to wear jackets.
Yes.
Because, not necessarily for us, per se, but a lot of the other tables complain when someone doesn't wear a jacket. What you have to realize is that Le Bernardin caters for everyone, of course. And we have people who come for business. We have foodies, people who come for anniversaries, celebrate. The ladies dress well. Very often the gentlemen dress well for the ladies. And then when they see someone coming with a T-shirt and they're like, what is that? I'm here to celebrate, and you basically disrespecting that clientele. And they complain to us.
Interesting.
So we don't ask people to have a tie, but a jacket.
No, I learned my lesson every time I've come back after that.
And we have jackets for.
No, you brought me a very nice
size.
blazer. Yeah. It was a little big. I'm hard to fit because I'm a small man. But you can't show up like I'm dressed. Our listeners won't know this, but the viewers will know that I'm just wearing a regular shirt. You can't show up like this. You gotta have.
No, you can eat in the lounge without jacket.
Yeah,
the lounge is much more casual and it's fine. But inside the dining room, jacket.
And if you wear a T-shirt, you can eat out back. Out of the dumpster.
With a T-shirt, you can eat in a lounge.
Oh, really?
Well, if you have a T-shirt, it all depends. The dress code is very difficult because it's very subjective.
Yeah.
And some people think that coming with shorts and flip-flops and a T-shirt is okay. When you say, dress in good taste.
I see where you're coming from. This is vastly off topic, but since we're on it, I see you're running one of the best restaurants in the world. It really has. That's not an overstatement. This is the reputation, and deserved. And so you want to have a certain aesthetic.
Yes. The idea of fine dining is to create an experience. Today, fine dining is not just about nourishing people with great food. It's about creating an experience that is very unique to the place. So Le Bernardin, and being well-dressed is part of that experience.
So now that I've taken you down this tributary, let's talk about Buddhism. You describe yourself as a Buddhist. How did that happen?
Well, when I was leaving France in 1989,
you were leaving France to come
I was
to the
leaving
States.
France to come to America. I found a book at the airport that was talking about Tibet, and it had a little bit of Buddhist theories in that book that inspired me a lot. During my trip, I had to read for 8 hours.
By the way, I read that you were actually looking for a Playboy, and you ended up taking the book about Tibet. Is that true?
It's true. I had enough money to buy Playboy for the interview because they're great.
Oh yeah,
or
for the articles,
or the or the book. And after hesitating a lot, finally at the last second, I took the book. And that was the beginning. Then I called my mother in France and I said, please send me some books about Tibet or whatever you find. And I read the speech of acceptance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama when he got the Nobel Prize for Peace. That inspired me a lot. And then it has been a slow process, but I like the spirituality of Buddhism. I like the fact that it can be also proven, the theories of Buddhism can be proven in a secular way, in a scientific way. It's something that speaks to me and a great inspiration in my life today. And I'm a practitioner. I have actually a Nepalese monk who comes once a week to my house.
Wow.
And I practice every morning with the rituals and meditations. And then obviously I try to apply the principles of Buddhism into my life. I'm not trying to convert anyone at Le Bernardin or in a kitchen, but I try to inspire the cooks to do the right thing, finding secular ways.
So there are a million things in what you just said that I want to ask you more about. But let me just go back to the moment on the plane. You're leaving your life behind in France and you're coming to the U.S. to start as a young chef.
Yeah.
And something in that book about Tibet speaks to you. Can you give me a sense of what it was that turned the lights on for you?
Yes. First of all, Tibet has been a very close country before the invasion of China. And we didn't know much about Tibet. The Western world didn't know too much about Tibet. Then, as we know, China invaded Tibet and annexed Tibet to China. Today, Tibet is a province of China. And I was fascinated by the lifestyle of the Tibetan people in the Himalayas. I was in that book. I was fascinated by how important the monasteries are in the life of Tibetan people. How much the spirituality is passing from generation through generations, and I like the idea of I like the idea that they had a Dalai Lama who was someone highly respected and loved, and basically this kind of like a beloved king who was also wearing the robe of a monk. It's a lot of things that I was interested, because I think I am a spiritual person. I know today I am a spiritual person. At that time, I was born Catholic. Catholicism didn't answer my questions, and I was not happy with Catholicism. Now, I'm not criticizing that religion at all. I believe all major religions have the same goal, which is to make people better people and potentially bring us to enlightenment. But Catholicism didn't speak to me. And I was young and I was curious, and I wanted to become a better person. I was an angry kind of teenager, old teenager. I wanted to be at peace. I wanted to find a way. I wanted to find guidance in life, and Buddhism did that to me.
Did you become a Buddhist right away, or was it a process?
It was a long process, because I remember really starting to go to the teachings of His Holiness in New York, and having a collection of books that I didn't really understand well in the late 90s. So it took 10 years of making a lot of mistakes, because in Buddhism is no beginning and end. It's hard to grasp the philosophy like that when you don't have guidance. And I remember when His Holiness was teaching at the Beacon Theatre.
Beacon Theatre, yeah.
Well, sometimes he does it at the Radio City Hall, sometimes the Beacon Theatre, mostly New York. I had the best nap in my life. I didn't understand anything. I mean, after 5 minutes, I was scratching my head, and I thought I knew a little bit about Buddhism. I was like, I have knowledge. I'm going to be comfortable in that room with 5,000 people. Nothing. I was lost. And I was with a friend, and actually last year he taught again. It was at Radio City Hall, and I was so proud, in a good way, to understand everything, almost everything he was talking about, especially some topics that are very difficult to comprehend, like the theory of emptiness. We can talk hours about just the theory of emptiness. That everything is related. Basically, everything is one. It's no, whatever you conceive as a glass is not really a glass. And I can confuse you more.
I think there's so much there, and you can argue about emptiness. And
yeah, well, you can argue to a certain degree, because today's science, and especially quantum physics, is making it's basically confirming the theory of emptiness coming from a spiritual, religious point of view.
The basic theory of the emptiness, just for the listeners and viewers who may not know anything about this, but emptiness, I'm going to take a shot at this, and I may fail, but the basic theory is that everything is empty of some sort of pure essence. In other words, there is no Eric, some morsel of Eric in your brain somewhere. And this glass, it may look solid to you, but if you look closely, it's made up of spinning molecules and spinning all sorts of subatomic particles, et cetera, et cetera. So everything can be broken down into smaller and smaller parts. So we walk around, where the rubber hits the road on this is we walk around thinking that there is some little Dan in here, some little Eric up in your head, and that actually can be the source of a lot of our suffering, of all of our greed and our hatred, definitely. Et cetera, et cetera.
For sure, yes. You nailed it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
And also the interpretation of the glass. I may think this glass of water is beautiful, and you may think this glass of water is ugly, and someone else may think this glass of water could be a good weapon to throw at someone. And so you interpret it the way you want, but ultimately this glass of water is made of sand that has been blown in a factory by people and so on. And the water is made of molecules, like you mentioned, and it's made of atoms. And in between the atoms, it's some huge spaces. And the smallest particle that today we have been able to identify scientifically is called quarks. And quarks is very interesting because it is matter, but if you observe it, it becomes radio wave.
Right.
And that it's very interesting because you can basically create your path.
So it means the takeaway really is that nothing is as solid as it seems.
Exactly. And nothing has an intrinsic reality. I think you say intrinsic when it.
Intrinsic reality.
Intrinsic reality. Nothing exists by itself. It's all related. It's all ultimately it's all one. You see the water, for instance.
Yeah.
You don't see the cloud, but it was a cloud that created rain that fell on the ground and that was filtered and ended up in some ways in your glass. So that quantity of water, it's what you see is not really what it is exactly. It's the cloud and it's everything else. So it's all one. It's all related, including ourselves.
You're making me thirsty. But how does emptiness impact the way you actually live?
Well, because when you start to understand emptiness, suddenly you detach yourself and have less desires and attachment. And as we know, attachment and desire are creating trouble in us, for us. Like, let's suppose you love your Ferrari so much. Let's suppose you have a Ferrari.
Not true.
So
I only can afford lunch at Le Bernardin, so there's no Ferrari.
But let's suppose someone has a Ferrari and he loves his Ferrari and he thinks that Ferrari is bringing him happiness, or he's about to buy the Ferrari and he's like, that's going to bring me so much happiness, I'm going to have so much fun, it's going to be amazing. Let's suppose he buys it and 5 minutes later he crashes in a wall. Well, suddenly he's going to have a terrible, terrible sadness, probably cry and be very unhappy. So emptiness, when you understand emptiness, suddenly you basically detach yourself. Even with a family, it doesn't mean you cannot love your son dearly and your wife and your family dearly, but you detach yourself a little bit. Because if you too attach, down the line it's going to create pain. And life in Buddhism is pain. We live in samsara. Samsara is the cycle of death and life. And the idea is to free yourself from that basically cage made of 4 elements, which is the fire and the water and the wind and the matter. So when you understand emptiness, you also understand that compassion is very important, to be compassionate with people and all sentient beings. It just changed the way you see events coming at you in your life and the way you are surrounded. And it brings a certain peace of mind, and it develops, for some reason, an act of compassion. And compassion is a word that is very strange for Westerners like us. You say, I love something, but you will never say, I compassion something. It's not in our vocabulary, really. But compassion is basically being sensitive to the pain of other sentient beings and giving love. So basically, you take the pain and you give love. And you can do that in meditation, which is an exercise that prepare you to do that in real what I call real life is when you interact with other sentient beings.
So a lot to understand intellectually, but as you said, in order to allow it to have a visceral impact, you got to do this thing called meditation, or you probably should do this thing called meditation. When did you start meditating within this chronology that we've been discussing? How long after you bought that book in Tibet?
I started to meditate in the mid-90s, and it was very difficult. You have 2 types of meditation, samatha and vipassana. So one of them, we're not going to use the Sanskrit word. One of them will be single point meditation.
Samatha, concentration meditation, yes.
Concentration. So that basically is an exercise that helps your brain to stop thinking in the future or in the past. Mm-hmm. It's basically stopping the engine of the car and creates relaxation when you, after practice, creates the ability to concentrate and makes you more at peace for some reason. The other one, it's basically guided meditation where you visualize. So you can visualize, for instance, let's suppose that you have anger issues or jealousy issues. So the anger could be visualized as a dark cloud. And then suddenly out of your brain comes a beam and you destroy the dark cloud.
This is what you're doing in your meditation?
In a meditation. You can do that, and by practicing like that and doing that, and I'm giving you a very simple exercise, but by going further and further, you actually create for yourself the qualities to fight those challenges, like anger, for instance.
Just in the simple exercise. So I've done some meditation, but not this kind. So just help me understand how visualizing the anger as a dark cloud and then.
So then, let's suppose you are in a situation where you are about to become angry. Something is frustrating you. First of all, if you understand emptiness, you understand it's not exactly what you think it is. And then if you have been able in meditation to destroy that anger you can apply it at the same time. Like, let's suppose you annoy me now, and I'm like about to
somehow this
lose
doesn't
it.
seem theoretical.
No. But let's suppose you're annoying now, right? And like my blood pressure is going up, and I'm about to explode.
Like when I was challenging the dress code, for example.
No. But I may very well say, this is not real the way I perceive it, and all that anger that I have in me, I'm destroying it as I talk to you, I visualize it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get angry. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be at peace, and I'm gonna let you do what you do. And then I'm gonna, as a Buddhist, I will think that you're giving me the opportunity, actually, to act properly and to accumulate virtues.
Right. I mean, the Dalai Lama talks about the Dalai Lama, whose country was invaded and has a lot of reason, many believe, to be angry at the Chinese, for example, has talked about the value of having an enemy because they're your greatest teacher.
Well, if you have no challenge, you cannot basically progress. You need challenges in life to be able to be tested. And when you pass the tests, you become a better person. So His Holiness considered the Chinese who have invaded his country, who are still pressuring his people, the Tibetan community. He considers them brothers and sisters, and he has a lot of compassion toward them. Of course, he's working to make sure that the Tibetan people are not prosecuted over there and they live happily and so on. But he's thinking like that, yes.
So anger is a big part of the cooking profession, at least by reputation. So if you walk into it's hot in the kitchen, and I've read that you were the kind of guy who was like throwing plates once in a while, and you studied under Joël Robuchon, is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So and I understand he kind of yelled at you once in a while, and
although he was not a screamer, and he was not violent. So at that time, it was common practice in kitchens to see plates flying and pots and pans and being beat up in the shoulders or kicked in the butt or screamed at. Joël Robuchon was different, but he was still very rigorous and very demanding, and we had to be extremely disciplined and excel at what we were doing.
So did meditation change the way you operate in a kitchen?
Yes, absolutely. I do not recall the last time I screamed in my kitchen. Not like I have a bad memory. I mean, it's not that good, but and the way I tackle the challenges and the way I interact with the staff, it's much different than when I started in 1991 at Le Bernardin. I'm trying to share with them my knowledge. I try to inspire them. I try to correct their mistakes without getting angry.
Okay, but as we do this interview, it's in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday, right?
I think so. I don't know.
And we've just finished lunch service.
Yeah.
You just finished a lunch service. What if one of the guys on the line, one of your sous chefs, made a sauce that tasted like crap, and you caught it on the way out?
Yes.
What would you do?
I talk, if he's the highest sous chef in the kitchen, I talk directly to him. If not, I go to the highest sous chef, and I explain to him that the other one made a mistake and it's really bad, and we have to remake it, or we have to find solutions to not serve it to the client. And I do that. I go to the highest ranking sous chef, because if I start to talk to the line cook, then I have to repeat it to another sous chef, then I have to repeat it to another sous chef. So I have to repeat myself 4 times. By going straight to the top, I do it once, and then he's in charge of making sure that the message is distributed to the people in charge that's supposed to get the information.
How do you do that without anger, though? Because I mean, you've spent years building your reputation.
Yeah.
You've got these clients paying a lot of money.
Yeah.
And if that bad sauce had made it to the floor, it would have been potentially damaging to all of that.
Sometimes I'm frustrated. When I am frustrated, I may not be happy. Like like I said, I'm not a screamer, but I may be sarcastic when I'm addressing to you my critics. I may be very irritated. But what I do after, when the incident has passed, I go back and I apologize on the front of everyone. I have no problem to apologize on the front of my staff for not behaving the proper way. And that, I think, and I teach that to all the sous chefs or whoever has responsibility in a restaurant has to do that. And I think it makes us stronger, because being angry, it's a weakness. It's not a quality. Someone who's screaming and someone who's violent is not someone who's stronger than someone who's not. It's someone who has issues and someone who has not mastered himself.
Emotional unintelligence, if you're just getting hijacked and screaming all the time.
Yeah. So we shouldn't be proud of chefs who are screaming in their kitchen. And I'm always thinking about that TV show, Hell's Kitchen or Kitchen Nightmares, and that promote this behavior of screaming at people, insulting them and humiliating them. This is not something that should be on TV, actually. And it's sending the wrong message. We have to fight that.
So are you a kind of a lonely voice for calm and compassion in the kitchen?
I hope not.
Do you find that other top chefs are taking your side?
I have a lot of friends, chefs, who are thinking like me, but it's challenging. You know, it's challenging because a kitchen is not an environment that is easy. It's very humid. It's very hot. It's very tight. It's a lot of sharp objects. It's a lot of action. It's a lot of stress. Sometimes the kitchen is designed to challenge you to stay calm. At Le Bernardin, we're lucky. We have a very big kitchen, a lot of staff, a lot of everything we need. So it takes a lot of stress from the staff. But some kitchens are very tiny, and the people in those kitchens are challenged because they have to serve 100 people with very little. So sometimes the conditions are really, really conducive to become a screamer or to lose it.
So do you have any hope that you could make some sort of cultural change by speaking out against
I believe I'm making some cultural change already when I talk to you, when I have the opportunity in every interview to talk about that. When I am with Anthony Bourdain and we have done some shows together actually called Good and Evil, he always gives me the opportunity to talk. And I think I inspire people to at least think about it, say, oh, wow, maybe it's right. Maybe screaming and being abusive is not the right way to manage. Maybe a good leader shouldn't be like that.
Hi, I'm Lindsey Graham, the host of Wondery's podcast, American Scandal. We bring to life some of the biggest controversies in U.S. history, events that have shaped who we are as a country and that continue to define the American experience. American Scandal tells marquee stories about American politics, like the break-in at the Watergate Hotel, an event that led to the downfall of a president and raised questions about the future of American democracy. We go behind the scenes looking at devastating financial crimes, like the fraud committed at Enron and Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. And we tell stories of complicated public figures like Edward Snowden and Monica Lewinsky, people who found themselves thrust into the spotlight and who spurred debates about the future of the country. Follow American Scandal wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen ad-free on the Amazon Music or Wondery app.
Welcome to the Bishop Gray Academy, the country's most exclusive boarding school, a place where the best and brightest aren't fighting to be prom queen or captain of the football team. They're on track to become the next Supreme Court justice. Academy is a new scripted podcast that follows Ava Richards, a brilliant scholarship student who must quickly adapt in a school where rules mean nothing and money means everything. Ava sets her sights on being the first scholarship student to make the list, Bishop Gray's all-coveted academic top 10, curated by the headmaster himself. But with no clear path to the top, she joins the Night of the Wolf, Bishop Gray's underground society with more secrets than the Illuminati. If she bends to their demands in exchange for her own success, One of the 10 coveted spots will be hers, but at what cost? Enjoy Academy on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Binge all 10 episodes of Academy early and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus over on the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Well, let me talk about another part of handling stress and what kind of benefit you personally might derive from your meditation practice and your Buddhist practice play. So you, as I said before, you've had these 7 stars, 3 from Michelin, 4 from the New York Times for decades now. And keeping that up, I would imagine, would be a source of stress every day. You never know when some critic is going to sneak back in here and catch you on a bad day. So is that stressful, and is meditation useful in reducing the stress?
Well, it can be stressful. Meditation definitely can be a weapon against that stress. Again, if you attach to the stars, and if you become obsessed with your stars, every morning you're going to wake up and you're going to think about, you're going to brush your teeth and be like, and if I lose a star, what will happen? And if I lose... My way of dealing with that is that on the morning I'm thinking about my day, about what are we going to do today with the team? What are we doing in creativity? What are the challenges that I have to work on, or what are the rewards today? I'm thinking. I never think about the New York Times and the Michelin when I come to work. I think about how we are going to be able to create an experience for the guest. If yesterday was challenging, how can we avoid another challenge today? I think about all of that, and therefore, is no space to have stress about losing stars. Now, it's true that maybe the night before the New York Times comes out, if we're going to get the review, it's true that, I am attached a little bit to those stars. But, it's not an obsession that I have year after year.
Let me try to get the flip side of that. You have this peer group of top chefs. And a lot of these, and they're mostly men, they have empires, restaurants all over the place. So I had your friend, why am I spacing out his name? Mario Batali, on the show. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago. And this guy's got restaurants all over the place.
Yes.
And you, as far as I know, have this place and maybe
one in Cayman Island.
One in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have an empire.
No.
Maybe we consider this place to be an empire, but you don't seem to have the expansionary impulse of a lot of your peers.
And I tried. At one point, we had a restaurant in Philadelphia. We had Cayman. We had Philadelphia, Washington, of course, Le Bernardin. And it didn't satisfy me. It didn't make me happy. I was making money, of course, much more money than I make today. But my lifestyle was not reward. I was not happy to be in a train or in a plane, or to worry about the manager who's quitting, or is the food good or not good. So I decided not to develop. And I said, I have found my level of contentment. I make enough money to live well. I'm very lucky. I have a good lifestyle. I want to see my son and my wife every day.
How old is your son?
13 now. Or maybe every day. Sometimes I need a break.
He's getting to that difficult age.
But anyway, I have time for myself, mostly on the morning, where I can do whatever I want, which is mostly studying, meditation, reading, whatever I want to do. Be lazy if I wish, walk in Central Park. I see my family every day. And I am with my team, and I'm mentoring my team very closely like an artisan. And this is what I am. I am an artisan. I'm not a business guy. Some chefs have the qualities of being artisans and business people. Some chefs love the idea of traveling the world all the time, and for them, I'm probably a very boring model. They don't want that. Ultimately, we are all different, right? And Mario has been able to create an empire, and he seems to be very happy and not overly stressed. And me, I'm different than Mario, but I'm very happy in this life. And I may not be able to retire ever, but because I need money. But I'm okay.
Well, so I evangelize for meditation. I try to get everybody excited about meditating, especially skeptics. And one of the arguments you sometimes hear from type A, hard-charging people about why they don't want to meditate is that they're worried it will make them lose their edge. Now, is the story you just told, which I find personally quite inspiring, do you think some skeptics would latch onto that and say, oh, well, this is what happens when you start meditating, you don't want to conquer the world anymore?
But why do I want to conquer the world? I don't want to conquer the world. I want to make the best black bass in the kitchen downstairs with the team. And it's not about conquering the world, and I'm not thinking about I want to be the number one. I don't care about being the number one. It's about doing something that I have passion for and transmitting the knowledge and the passion to the people who are with me and making a living out of it. I don't need to be the number one in the world.
but yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel the same way. But
and if you are someone who really wants to conquer the world and create an empire, and you can in meditation create that. They call that I don't remember the name now. Transcendental meditation, right? So they have a mantra and they visualize what they want. Meditation it's not necessarily religious. Meditation is almost like going to the club, exercising for the muscles, but it's for the brain.
Yes.
So let's suppose you want to be creating the biggest empire of restaurants in the world. Well, of course, you have to work hard and you have to have the capabilities and you have to have a lot of components helping you, but the meditation can help you to do that. You visualize your empire and you say your mantra, you visualize your empire. And I know some business people who are doing that every afternoon in their office. They do transcendental meditation and they visualize the takeover of this hotel and they visualize until it happens.
You just don't have that urge.
No, I don't. No. To me, I just want to be happy. We all want to be happy. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is the nature of human beings, and this is where we are all equals. Obviously, we want to refute suffering, and we all want to be happy. But my way of being happy is a very simple way. It's a very humble way, in a sense.
What does your daily practice look like now?
I wake up. I do my rituals.
Rituals,
because so in my apartment, I have a meditation room.
Yeah, and I've read that the cat knows not to go in there.
Even the cats don't go there. I have a meditation room / shrine / temple, basically. And I go in my room and I say some mantras. I light some incense and I light candles and I do some prayers and I study and I meditate.
How long?
It all depends, but most of the time it's about an hour to 2 hours. Now, if I have to do a TV show at 7 a.m., it's no meditation. I'm going straight to the TV show. Or if I have some other things that are unusual, I will change my schedule. But out of 365 days, it's probably 300 and something days that are like that. Going to my room, meditating, studying rituals, recitation of mantras.
When you talk about rituals, what does it actually involve?
Well, it's one ritual that I do every morning. So first of all, I light the candles and light incense and do my prayers. And then is a ritual that I do every morning. I have 7 bowls, empty, and I fill them up with water, and I offer them to Shakyamuni Buddha. After that, it's called the 7-limb meditation. So you can do it physically, which I do every day, and then you can do it also in meditation if you can't physically do it. Let's suppose you are traveling, you're in a hotel, you don't have your 7 balls and a statue of Buddha, you do it mentally. Mm-hmm. After that, I do a confession of all my bad deeds. Then I rejoice for all the good deeds that I have done. Then I ask to be lucky to have a long life and a good health to be able to practice bodhicitta and potentially to become enlightened. Then I ask...
Can you define bodhicitta, just so we know?
Bodhicitta is when you acknowledge that we are all equals. And you understand that everyone potentially in your life was your mother. And
in a past life.
In a past life. All sentient beings. This is, by the way, bodhicitta mind is specific to Mahayana and to a certain other schools of thoughts in Mahayana. Not all Mahayana believes in bodhicitta.
So Mahayana is just a school of Buddhism, just to make clear.
Yes, we have Theravada and Mahayana, which are 2 big schools of Buddhism, and inside those schools you have many branches. Mm-hmm. And Tibetan Buddhism is Vajrayana, but it's divided in 4 different schools again, major schools. So anyway, you acknowledge that even potentially, because we don't believe time exists the way we perceive it, we believe time is infinite. So potentially everyone could have been my mother and could have given me a lot of love and compassion. And therefore, I will practice and give love and compassion to all sentient beings that I encounter in my life. This is practicing bodhicitta.
Thank you for that. And but I interrupted your morning flow there that you were telling
me
about.
Yes, so I asked to have the privilege to have a long life and healthy life. Then I ask for Buddha to stay in this world in different ways, to teach us. Buddha will stay in this world to teach us and potentially help us to free ourselves from samsara. And ultimately, at the end, I offer my good karma from my previous life and this life to Buddha to distribute to all sentient beings that are in need. So this is a practice that is very religious. It's something that I do every morning.
And is there time there for...
And by the way, when I fill up the glasses of water, mm-hmm. I have a mantra, and basically right after that, I visualize giving Buddha a lot of offerings. Food, fruits, clothes, medicines, incense, whatever you wish to imagine. I'm visualizing that on the front of him live.
As if he were right there in the room.
As if he was there in the room.
And is all of what you described, is that a preliminary to meditation, or is that the meditation?
It's preliminary. This is the first thing that I do on the morning.
And then you do a seated practice?
Yes.
And what is, when you do your seated practice, what is that practice consist of?
It depends. I mean, it changes all the time. But I do a little bit of a single point meditation. So basically, if sometimes my back hurts, so I do not sit on the lotus position. I sit comfortably on a chair. But if not, I sit on the lotus position because I believe it helps, the posture helps the energies in a body to circulate better. What I visualize, it's when I inhale, is the energy coming from
the lower back.
The lower back going up through the spine
mm-hmm.
and coming up here. And when I exhale, it goes back down. Some people focus on inhaling and exhaling. But for me, I focus on those energies. It's where I can be the most focused. And I do that. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, and sometimes it could be more, but I do not put my watch and look at the watch because it's no competition. I'm not competing with anyone. It's no winner, no loser. If I have a lot of thoughts and I'm distracted, I stop a little bit. If I have a couple of thoughts, I acknowledge them, and then I go back to my focus. Then I do guided meditations, like I mentioned, an easy one for you. Compassion is a good meditation to do. You can visualize someone you love very, very much, someone who's very close to you, and take the pain. It's called Tonglen, actually, in Tibetan Buddhism. You visualize the pain, you absorb the pain, and you give love. And then you imagine someone that you don't really care about. And you do the same with that person. And then at the end of the meditation, you can do that with 20 people, by the way, one after the other. But at the end, you take someone that you really dislike, if it happens. Someone that you really, really potentially hate, if you have hatred in yourself, which you shouldn't, but someone that bothers you. And you do the same exercise. And you repeat it, and you repeat it, and you repeat it. Ultimately, you create inside a transformation in you that will help you to be compassionate towards sentient beings.
Well, I think there's, I do this practice myself, and I think there's science that suggests that it really works.
Yeah.
You were saying before that you do guided meditations. Do you mean that you listen to somebody guiding you, or?
I have a teacher who comes, is Geshe, which is like
it's like a Tibetan PhD.
Yes, it is. He's from Nepal. He's Tibetan and Nepalese, and he comes once a week in my house. I have also tapes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I have different ways to get guided meditation. But one-on-one is very powerful.
So when he comes, does he ask you to tell him about your practice, and he tells you where you're going wrong, or is it more just you do a meditation?
No, he's
together?
teaching me. Like, for instance, we can talk about the Four Noble Truths, and yes, he may evaluate me and say, "What? So let's talk about the Four Noble Truths. What do you know about it?"
Those are the Buddha's principal pronouncements, the
yes,
Four Noble Truths.
Acknowledging that in life it's suffering, and suffering as an origin, a root, and that you can, if you go to the root of suffering, of that specific suffering, and cut it, which could be attachment, you will not suffer. But ultimately, to free yourself from samsara, you have to follow the path of Buddha.
That's the Eightfold Path,
yes.
Which is the fourth noble truth. It gets
yes.
very mathematical, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, the eight how you call it, Eightfold
path. Yeah.
Path. It's a wheel, right? That is designed, and it's to help you to practice. So you have to believe, obviously, in a teaching and practice the teaching, and then when you have that education, you have to have good thoughts. Then you have to have a good speech. Then good actions. Then to have a job that is not in conflict with the teachings. Like if you work for the mafia, I don't know if you can be Buddhist. Then you have to make the right efforts every morning or every day in your life to become a better person. Then you have to develop concentration. Before mindfulness, yes, mindfulness before concentration.
So, how important is it to have this Nepalese monk dropping by once a week? Does that put your practice on the next level?
Yes, of course. He's helping me a lot. He's coming now to my house for about a year, and he has helped me a lot. Yes.
You wrote a book recently, which I'm embarrassed to admit I haven't yet read because I just found out about it. But it's a memoir, and it came out.
It came out a couple of months ago. In June, yes.
It's called 32 Yokes from My Mother's Table to Working the Line. And now I admit that I haven't read it, which again I'm not proud of. But you.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, but
millions of people haven't read it.
But when I have a guest on, I pride myself on reading their actual books. So this is not a good exception to that rule. But in the book, I've read about the book, and you do talk about some painful incidents from your past in the book, including your parents' divorce,
yes,
and physical abuse from your stepfather,
uh-huh.
and also being abused by a priest.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, and also whether
yes.
this practice has helped you in any way?
Yes. So I had a great life in the 70s in Saint-Tropez, which, Saint-Tropez, 70s, couples, it's a challenge.
I see. So
So my parents were very successful by our standards, very good looking, and therefore it ended up in a divorce. I guess temptation was too much at that time. My mother remarried, my father remarried. My stepfather was very abusive in terms of like beating me and verbally. Because I was a very difficult child, I was at war with him. I ended up going to a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school. I couldn't come back on a weekend to my house every weekend. I had to stay sometimes. So one priest said to my mother, if you want, I can take him to see movies. I can take, I can take him outside the school. He can go walk in town. And so my mother said, yes, it's fine. So that Catholic priest tried, obviously, not obviously, but he tried to abuse me sexually. And, then my mother came and I was out of that school. And then my life was still not easy. I had other challenges. But I ended up being a very angry teenager that led into a very angry young man. And with different issues as well, linked to anger. And ultimately, I had, I think, a certain spirituality in me. And until I discovered Buddhism, I was kind of lost. Lost in a sense that I was trying to be a good person, and I couldn't succeed at the level of where I wanted to be. And Buddhism was, for me, a revelation.
We're almost done. I'm sensitive to the fact that I'm holding you back from the bustling operation beneath us down there.
That's a vacation, actually. I'm having an hour vacation.
Are there things that I should have asked you about that I didn't ask you about? Are there other things you want to talk about before I let you go?
No, I think I mentioned during our discussion that I'm not trying to convert everyone to Buddhism. And again, I want to reiterate that I'm really trying to I am in a position of leadership, therefore I'm trying to educate people around me who are working with me to do the right thing in a very secular way. And I think this is very important, not to try to convert people.
Have you had anybody complain?
No, nobody complained because I do not try to convert them. I never do that. But I apply the good principles. I try to apply the good principles the entire day. And what I do actually is that on the morning, I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a day with challenges. And today I'm going to be the best I can. And let's see if tonight I will be happy when I look at myself in the mirror. It's always a little bit of a discrepancy.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. But as you said before, the trick is where there are discrepancies, you can just be better at going back and apologizing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to sit and talk with you, Chef.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, too.
Okay, there's another edition of the 10% Happier podcast. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe, rate us. And if you want to suggest topics we should cover or guests we should bring in, hit me up on Twitter at Dan B. Harris. I also want to thank heartily the people who produce this podcast and really do pretty much all the work. Lauren Efron, Josh Cohan, Sarah Amos, Andrew Kalb, Steve Jones, and the head of ABC News Digital, Dan Silver. I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Hey, Prime members. You can listen to 10% Happier early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today. Or you can listen early and ad-free with Wondery Plus in Apple Podcasts. Before you go, do us a solid and tell us all about yourself by completing a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.